Gayle King has often reflected on the moment her marriage truly ended, not in terms of a day or even an event, but down to a single unforgettable minute. At exactly 9:16 p.m., she stepped through her front door and was confronted with a reality that would permanently alter the course of her life. What she discovered in that instant did not simply mark the collapse of a relationship. It became the dividing line between everything that came before and everything that followed. Her husband pleaded for forgiveness, and for a time she tried to hold things together, hoping that what had been broken could somehow be repaired. Yet some wounds resist healing, no matter how much effort is poured into them. Now, after 13 years as a defining presence at CBS, she is preparing to step away, while William Bumpus has finally spoken publicly in a way that explains why trust was never fully rebuilt. The connection between that night in 1990 and her departure in 2026 carries a depth of pain that many people never fully understood. Her journey began in surroundings that seemed polished and secure on the outside, yet were far more complex beneath the surface. Born on December 28, 1954, in Chevy Chase, she grew up in an affluent suburb where black families were few and differences were impossible to hide. As the oldest of 4 daughters, she was raised by her mother, Peggy Tucker, who managed the home, and her father, Scott King, an electrical engineer working for the United States government. From a distance, her upbringing might have appeared stable and comfortably middle class. However, that sense of steadiness would not last for long. While she was still very young, her life took a sudden and dramatic turn. At just 6 years old, she was removed from everything familiar and relocated to Ankara, where her father had been assigned during the tense years of the Cold War. One day, she was living in Maryland, and the next she found herself immersed in an entirely different world. The environment around her was filled with busy streets, vibrant open-air markets, the presence of live animals like sheep, and the constant sound of the call to prayer echoing throughout the day. For a child, such a shift must have felt overwhelming, like stepping into a reality that bore no resemblance to the one she had known. From first grade through 6th grade, she lived in that in-between space, caught between cultures and trying to understand a life that no longer matched her past. Although she attended an American school in Ankara, she often stood out as the only black girl, a position that carried a quiet but powerful sense of isolation. Outside of school, the city's energy was undeniable, yet it also felt distant and unfamiliar. She walked through bazaars, listened to languages she did not initially understand, and quickly learned how visible difference can be. At home, the comforts she might have relied on in the United States were absent. There was no familiar television routine, no predictable structure. Instead, her days were shaped by books, imagination, and an expanding inner world that grew in response to the uncertainty around her. These experiences shaped her in lasting ways. She became observant, learning to read people and environments with a careful eye. She also became resilient, developing the ability to adjust and carry herself even when she felt out of place. During those years, her family traveled as well, adding further layers to her early experiences. She visited cities like Paris and Athens, moving through places rich with beauty, tension, and complexity. Even if she could not fully grasp everything she was seeing, those moments expanded her understanding of the world. By the time most children were just beginning to form a sense of home, she had already lived across borders and collected memories that many adults never encounter. When her family returned to the United States in 1966, the transition was not as simple as going back to where she had started. She was once again in Maryland, but she had changed. The girl who had left years earlier no longer existed in the same way. She had developed new habits, picked up a different way of speaking, and gained a broader worldview. Instead of feeling welcomed, she often felt scrutinized. Her accent seemed unusual to others, her stories sounded unfamiliar, and the very experiences that had shaped her now made her stand out once again. To navigate this, she began to hide certain parts of herself, setting aside what felt too different and trying to blend into her surroundings. Even then, the sense of being slightly outside never fully disappeared. She had spent formative years abroad and returned during a period of major cultural shifts in America, yet she felt disconnected from parts of that experience. Having missed key moments of Black American life, she recognized a gap that could not easily be filled. While she understood her identity, she also knew she did not fit neatly into the expectations others held. That tension became a defining force in her life, sharpening her awareness, and eventually giving her a unique ability to connect with others while still understanding what it feels like to stand apart. As she grew older, that inner strength carried her into higher education. In 1972, she enrolled at the University of Maryland, choosing to study psychology. At that stage, her future did not appear to be headed toward television. She was not chasing recognition or fame, but was instead focused on building a practical and stable career. However, life often introduces unexpected opportunities, and for her, that moment came in 1975 when she accepted a part-time job at WTOP-TV. The work itself was far from glamorous. She handled scripts, ran errands, and took on small but essential tasks that kept the newsroom functioning smoothly. Yet what mattered was not the nature of the tasks, but the environment itself. She witnessed the inner workings of live television, experiencing the pressure, the fast pace, and the excitement that came with breaking news. The glow of studio lights, the tension of countdowns, and the unpredictability of live broadcasting drew her in. Before long, she realized that this world made her feel more alive than anything she had encountered in her academic studies. After graduating in 1976 with her degree in psychology, she chose not to follow the traditional path into counseling or further education. Instead, she stepped deeper into television, accepting a production assistant role at WJD-TV. Though the work remained behind the scenes, involving writing copy, answering phones, and handling various tasks, it became a critical period of growth. She observed, learned, and gradually found her place in a field she had never planned to enter, but was beginning to embrace. It was also at WJZ that she crossed paths with Oprah Winfrey, who was still in the early stages of her own remarkable career. Initially, their connection was limited. They were colleagues who moved through the same workplace, but occupied different roles. That changed during a snowstorm in 1976, when Oprah offered her a place to stay because traveling home had become unsafe. What might have remained a simple act of kindness instead became the foundation of a lifelong friendship. That night, the two women talked at length, sharing stories about their fears, ambitions, families, and experiences as young Black women navigating spaces where they often felt isolated. By the following morning, their connection had deepened into something far more meaningful. From that point on, their friendship became one of the most consistent and influential relationships in her life. While that bond strengthened, she continued building her career steadily. Her background in psychology proved invaluable, helping her develop a strong ability to listen, observe, and ask thoughtful questions. These skills would later define her approach as an interviewer. She moved from Baltimore to Kansas City and eventually, in 1981, joined WFSB-TV in Hartford, Connecticut. Hartford became a pivotal chapter in her life. Though it was not a major media center, it provided the space for her to grow into her role as a journalist. She worked consistently, covering local news and building trust with viewers. Over time, she became known for her authenticity, her steady presence, and her ability to connect with people in a genuine way. In 1982, she married William Bumpus, and together they built a family, welcoming two children, Kirby and William Jr. from the outside. Her life seemed complete, marked by professional success and personal fulfillment. However, beneath that surface, challenges were present. She balanced the demands of her career with motherhood while navigating a marriage that carried hidden difficulties. The relationship ultimately broke down, leading to a divorce in 1993. Despite the emotional toll, she remained committed to her work and maintained the composure that viewers admired. This experience deepened her understanding of human emotion, allowing her to approach interviews with greater empathy and insight. As her career continued to evolve, she pursued new opportunities, including launching the Gayle King Show in 1997. Although the show was short-lived, it represented an important step in her journey. She later expanded her reach through print, joining the Oprah magazine in 1999, where her writing connected with a wide audience. In 2011, she hosted a show on Oprah's network OWN before taking on a defining role at CBS This Morning in 2012. There, she established herself as a national figure, known for her balance of warmth and seriousness. Her credibility grew over time, particularly during difficult moments, such as the departure of Charlie Rose in 2017. One of her most memorable moments came in March 2019 during her interview with R. Kelly. Amid intense scrutiny and serious allegations, she maintained composure even as the situation became volatile. Her calm presence stood in stark contrast to the emotional intensity of the moment, demonstrating a level of control that resonated with audiences worldwide. Yet long before that public display of strength, she had already endured a deeply personal betrayal. On June 24, 1990, at exactly 9:16 p.m., she discovered her husband with another woman, someone she knew. The pain of that moment was intensified by the woman's cold response, making the betrayal even more profound. Although there were attempts to repair the marriage, the trust had been broken beyond repair. In the years that followed, she focused on her children and her career, refusing to let the experience define her. Even when Bumpus later issued a public apology, acknowledging the impact of his actions, the past could not be undone. Still, she moved forward with resilience, building a life shaped not by bitterness, but by strength. By 2025, new challenges emerged, including the spread of false AI-generated images suggesting a secret engagement. She addressed the situation with humor, though it reflected the ongoing public fascination with her personal life. As 2026 approached, and her CBS contract neared its conclusion, questions about her future grew louder. After more than a decade as a central figure in morning television, her departure marked the end of a significant era. For viewers, it was more than a career transition. It was the closing of a chapter defined by perseverance, emotional strength, and a life story that extended far beyond what was seen on screen.